the questions. We're going to go over to the third speaker, Mr. Jayaraj Palihawadana from United Kingdom. He's an attorney at law and a solicitor. Mr. Palihawadana is a graduate of law and practicing solicitor in a reputed law firm in United Kingdom. He is a founder member of Global Sri Lankan Forum UK and currently the CEO and the secretary of the organization. Through this organization, he is directly involved in organizing activities and attending UN human rights sessions since 2017. His experience range from being a lawyer, activist in a non-governmental organization, as well as his most recent role working in International Human Rights Commission as an ambassador to United Kingdom. He will discuss about organizing activities of Tamil terrorist supported organizations irrespective of the ban in UK, how they established link, strong presence within political parties and acquired support from UK's political party leaders along with MPs and UK parliamentary groups. We'll also analyze aspects of LTTE ban in UK, legal consideration of the Tamil LTTE ban, and most importantly, their recent application to delist LTTE from the proscribed terrorist organization list in the United Kingdom. He also gives a brief explanation of interconnections among British Tamil Forum, TGTE, which is the Transnational Government of Tamil Eelam, an all-party parliamentary group for Tamils. Further, he explains how they are deceiving British politicians and public lies with misrepresentations. Without further ado, I present to you Ms. Palihawadana.
Thank you, Anwar. I just come into the point straight away rather than saying anything else. Recently, we have noted some interesting new developments here in UK in regards to the LTTE supported diaspora activities. So this webinar is timely organized. Our thank goes to the organizers. Mainly through this presentation, I'm going to give you all some updates on these new diaspora activities, especially going into the legal aspects of them. We all aware that the LTTE terrorist war in Sri Lanka has been lost. However, London's Tamil terrorist supporters are still committed to the dream of their own Eelam state. In other words, we can say Tamil tigers defeated at home, defiant abroad. When Sri Lankan soldiers found the bloated corpse of Velipille Prabhakaran on the shores of Nandikada Lagoon 11 years ago, it was clear that one of the world's most terrorist networks has been dealt a crushing military defeat. However, even the war in Sri Lanka has been lost, London's Tamil terrorist supporters are still committed to the dream of their own state. Despite suffering a catastrophic defeat on the battlefield, still, the Tamil Tigers' vast international funding and smuggling network remain largely intact, and with the help of Tamil sympathizers, including those in Britain, the terror group is more than capable of rebuilding itself with potentially devastating consequences for the future peace in Sri Lanka. The LTT may have been destroyed militarily, but the international financing structure is still in place, says Nathan Sankar Raji, a senior London-based leader of the Eelam Revolutionary Organization, which has similar goals to the LTTE, but opposed to their violent tactics. There was a saying, apart from that, there was a saying during the war times that peace in Sri Lanka will just as much as depend on what happens on the streets of Southall, Tooting and Harrow than within Sri Lanka itself. I'm going to start with some, I wanted to start with some nice pictures to show, but there's a problem with my presentation, the slideshow. But we have seen there are some interesting pictures of a cemetery of graves engraved with LTTE symbols in London. So this is none other than, this is not anywhere else, it is not in Sri Lanka. These graves engraved with LTTE symbols, and the half of the countries belongs to them, the symbols like that. It was in UK. It is very close to, that cemetery was very close to London, a place called Hendon Cemetery. Actually, this is not a surprise at all. It is a quite common in UK, irrespective of the LTTE ban. Supporters of the LTTE are freely commemorate their dead terrorist supporters by using symbols of the banned organization. This is just one example. There are many such incidents like this. Irrespective of the ban here in UK, UK authorities let terrorists to have graves engraved with their symbols, let them to wave flags belongs to the banned terrorist organization, and provide humanitarian assistance for the person who groomed children as well as small as child soldiers and supplied cyanide capsules to them. So it is interesting to understand how the British do like this, how the LTTE sympathizers and supporters achieve so far. Unlike when you're looking into this problem deeply, unlike in other countries, the diaspora activities in UK are fully integrated into the UK's political system in many ways. UK's major political parties are openly support LTTE cause. Better not to forget, still, UK is very important because UK is still leading the action against Sri Lanka in the Human Rights Council with their supportive group with Germany, Montenegro, and all the others, after United States of America left the Human Rights Council. Those organizations are affiliated to both of the major political parties. Also, the committee in the parliament called APPGT, All Party Parliamentary Group of Tamils, is the mouthpiece of the British Tamil Forum. Labour Party openly extend their support to these organizations, and the Conservatives also the same. So first, we go into the LTTE ban in UK. LTTE has been banned in UK since 2001. That is a fact. Now, we go into that legislation and we go into the relevant legal consideration of the ban. Section 12 of the Terrorism Act 2000 creates offenses if a person invites others to support for a prescribed organization, expresses an opinion or belief that is supportive for a prescribed organization, arrange, manage, or assist in arranging, managing a meeting, addresses a meeting, and the purpose of his address is encouraged. Support for a prescribed organization is banned. Sorry for the legal terminology I'm using. There's no other way of saying this. Further, in conjunction with the Section 26 and the Section 13 of the Terrorism Act 2000 provides, in a public place, wear an item of clothing or wears, carries, or displays an article in such a way or is such circumstances as to arouse reasonable suspicion that he is a member of or supporter of the prescribed organization, that person commits an offense. So that is the legal terminology, that is the legal background, that is the legal stand in UK in regard to the using of symbols and ideology and whatever belongs to the proscribed organization, which is the LTTE. In spite of the UK ban, LTTE has continued openly run its international headquarters from London. UK allowed demonstrations, events that glorified suicide terrorism, listened to glorified terrorism, listened by the British MPs on top of the LTTE flag holding behind them. UK's television, especially the Channel 4, had an anti-Sri Lankan campaign openly. And that is the way that the Sri Lankan, the British Parliament as well as the British public is deceived by the LTTE supporters. Now we have obvious question When these things happens in UK, what is the Sri Lankan High Commission and the Sri Lankan organization doing? Have they made any complaints? That is the obvious question we raised as soon as we see all this information. To be fair to them, I can say yes, they did. Every time when the LTT supporters demonstration held in wherever the place in UK, High Commission made complaints. As similar to that, the various organizations and patriotic individuals also do the same. There were some arrests, but no prosecutions at all. So what is the response from the British police for these complaints? That is very important point to think, point to consider. After taking all these complaints, the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, which is the body in charge of the prosecution in UK for cases like this, the CPS concluded that there was no evidence to prove that the Tamil community promoted these events in support of the LTTE. Therefore, the CPS did not consider the elements of Section 12 to have taken place. The act of carrying the flag does not prove membership to the LTTE. That is what the CPS is saying. I'm just reading their reply. The act of carrying the red flag does not prove membership or support of the LTTE, though it may do so in conjunction with other items or behavior showing affiliation to the LTTE as opposed to the Tamil people. In other words, the question is whether the chanting, our leader Prabhakaran, our nation Tamil Leelam, along with the presence of the red flag, would be deemed by the CPS as behavior showing affiliation to the LTTE. So there is a possibility. There is a possibility to bring up a prosecution for an offense under Section 12, but if we will be able to supply clear evidence to support this combination. Now there is a new development in regards to the ban. Now, TGTE is challenging the ban and looking forward to remove the LTT from the banned organization list. In December 2018, TGTE wrote to the Home Secretary Sajid Javid MP asking him to deproscribe the LTT on the basis that it was not concerned in terrorism and that is continuing proscription and that its continuous proscription was impeding the freedom of speech and assembly of Tamil people, including TGTE, who advocate for the right of the Tamil self-determination in the form of an independent state. However, in March 2019, the Home Office Secretary refused the application. It is that refusal which leads to TGTE's appeal, which was heard on the 31st of July, a few weeks ago. The Transitional Government of Tamil Leelam, TGTE's appeal against the ongoing proscription of the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Leelam was heard on the 31st July 2020, 3 weeks ago, before the Proscribed Organization Appeal Commission, POAC. In that appeal, the TGTE is seeking to have the LTTE removed from the list of proscribed terrorist organizations in the UK. Legal principle behind this is an ongoing an association may only be proscribed if the Home Secretary reasonably believes that it is currently concerned in terrorism. That is the definition comes from the Terrorism Act. At an opening hearing on the 31st of July, lawyer from the Home Secretary argued that he had reasonable ground for believing that the LTT was then concerned in terrorism. In reaching this conclusion, the Home Secretary had relied on the assessment by the Joint Terrorist Analyse Center, JTAC, which is identified press reports of a single incident in June 2018 in Oddu, Sudan, in Sri Lanka, which 3 individuals were arrested for allegedly transporting weapons and LTT flags. JTAC assessed that this could mean that LTT aligned individuals and groups were concerned terrorism. However, the TGTE argues that the information provided to the Home Secretary was insufficient for him to properly assess the credibility of the allegations, not to assess whether the incident could properly be attributed to the LTTE. So the TGTE, this press report, there is a doubt that raised by the TGTE lawyer in regards to this press report, because he says it's kind of a sting operation. The TGT argues that none of these issues were considered by the Home Secretary when reaching his decision. The TGT also argues that having decided that the LTT was concerned in terrorism, the Home Secretary unlawfully exercised his discretion to continue to proscribe the LTTE and failed to take into account the impact of the ongoing proscription to rights of the Tamils in UK to organize and express their support for Tamil self-determination and a separate state of Tamil. Look at the way they argue. That is the way. That is the political way. That is not that they understand how to argue politically rather than going into the saying about the terrorism and the bad terminology. Ban on LTTE misperceived as a ban on advocacy of the establishment of the sovereign state of Tamil. And as a result, it has a chilling effect on the people's participation of the Tamil TGTE's political work towards that goal. In other words, they are saying that the banning is denying their democratic rights. How shrewd they are. Now I am going into organizations in UK. There are lots of other organizations. However, two main organizations in UK managed to go into deeper and deeper into the UK political system. Mainly, it is the British Tamil Forum and the Transitional Government of Tamil Eelam, TGTE. The first one, the British Tamil Forum, BTF, legal trade name is British Tamil Forum UK Limited, surprisingly. Now, very recently, filed bankruptcy. I will go into that later. So what is this BTF? In 2009, the Global Tamil Forum was set up to bring together all the LTT-supported lobbying groups under one international umbrella organization. However, in 2013, half of the member organizations, the one closer to TCC and its views, left, and the leadership of the GTF today works as yet another independent organization that the BTF, British Tamil Forum, which operates in UK, that is their British arm. The other one is the Transitional Government of Tamil Eelam, TGTE. This initiative was taken in 2009. The idea was the creation of the Transitional Government of Tamil Eelam, which is so-called democratically elected government of the Tamil diaspora, as they say, which is with the parliament, a senate, and the constitution. But there is a common understanding that the structure, the first of its kind, it has failed to meet its ambitious aspirations to represent the whole diaspora. This was partly because of the rivalries between LTT fractions. So the KP was involved mainly before his arrest by the Sri Lankan authorities. Then his predecessors now running this organization. On 30th July 2020, when addressing the House of Lords, Lord Nesby clearly explained the real nature of the TGTE. Lord Nesby correctly pointed out that Tamil Tigers, that is why this is what Lord Nesby says, Tamil Tigers, LTTE, which was proscribed in 2001. It was succeeded by the Transitional Government of Tamil Eelam, TGTE, itself proscribed in Sri Lanka. It is satisfied and organized by former LTT people, and yesterday it started a legal action in the courts here in UK to lift the proscription of the Tamil Tigers. This was the speech made by the Lord Nesby on the just the day after the Tamil Tigers TGTE's request to deproscribe the LTTE from the banned organizations list. The hearing was taken place on the 31st July. This the day after the Lord Nesby is making this speech in House of Lords in London before the Parliament. Lord Nesby further stated that the TGT espouses an ideology which is almost identical to the LTTE. It has never denounced violence or the terrorism of the LTTE. It disseminates propaganda worldwide, targeting young people, mainly Tamil, with commemorative events, waving LTT flags and black tiger, etc., etc. So Lord Nesby clearly identified the connection between TGTE and the LTTE. That is very important to understand. This is not what I am saying. This is what Lord Nesby is saying. He's a British politician. He's a member of the House of Lords. Now I am coming into the important part. This is how they operate and influence UK government decisions in regard to Sri Lanka through these organizations. There are 3 different establishments they used to influence the UK government, especially the parliament and the political parties. The first one is APPGT, short form, All Party Parliamentary Group for Tamils. That is the first one. Second one is Tamils for Labour. Other one is the British Tamil Conservatives. When you go into the APPGT, All Tamil Parliamentary Group of Tamils, this is the most important one. The members are not from Tamil diaspora. They are British MPs. This parliamentary group consisting MPs from all political parties in the British Parliament. There are 85 members at the moment. Their meetings are holding inside the parliamentary complex, and it is very established. They follow all the very well-established principles. The irony is that their secretariat is listed as their secretariat is British Tamil Forum, BTF, which was filed winding up application very recently. So, in addition to APPGT, there are 2 major ones. That is why I mentioned earlier. In Labour, they have their own party branch, Tamils for Labour, and in Conservatives, they have British Tamil Conservatives. They carry out all these dealings with politicians through these organizations. So all these organizations are legal and democratically established and accepted by the UK public and the Parliament. So APPGT, All Party Parliamentary Group of Tamils, hosted its first ever conference on Tamil genocide recognition in the House of Parliament in 2009 October. So the conference was very well attended by MPs from all major political parties, including the former Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, the former Conservative Party leader, Ian Duncan-Smith, and the deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey. The conference was also featured several eminent academics and legal experts, including panel featuring former UN Assistant General Secretary, Assistant General Charles Pietri, former UN Special Rapporteur on Counter-Terrorism and Human Rights, Ben Emerson QC, and many more. So, but this is very important to understand the link between APPGT and the BTF. As I said before, the secretariat for the APPGT, this All Party Parliamentary Group, is British Tamil Forum. So, recently, on the 20th July 2020, British Tamil Forum BTF was served with the formal winding up order by the Business and Property Court of the High Court in Manchester. This is under the Insolvency Act 1986 upon the petition filed by its former employee Roshini Sivagurunathan. In the judgment of Roshini Sivagurunathan versus Tamil Forum UK Limited at the Royal Court of Justice in February 2019, the judge found BTF involved in direct discrimination, victimization, and denial of natural justice against the claimant Roshini Sivagurunathan. Then she was awarded 70,000 pounds in damages and costs. Tamil Forum UK is the legal arm of the controversial British Tamil Forum that was almost managing the all-party parliamentary group of Tamils of the British Parliament from the shadows until before the judgment day for the death of Rohini Sivagurunathan. So, the said TGTE is asking British government to lift the ban on LTTE, so you know the real connection. So the BTF, which is Secretariat of the APPGT, BTF is bankrupt, deceiving the British court by declaring bankruptcy to avoid pay compensation as ordered, which was involved in great violation of their own employees' rights. My question is still, APPGT and the UK MPs are still going to believe that such an organization is the true and real representative of the Tamil people? So this is an eye-opening to UK MPs who supports the LTT cause in the name of defending their rights to rethink what they are doing. So British MPs should find out how many other LTT charities are manipulating the kindness of the British public and using their donations to buy arms, ammunition, sending out money tax-free. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jayaraj, for that fantastic presentation. Jayaraj, we see a pattern in UK, as you mentioned, as we see a pattern in a similar pattern in Canada, as Dr. Hevage mentioned. And thank you for highlighting the various misinformation campaigns by the British Tamil Forum, as well as certain elements in UK providing misinformation. So we have a couple of questions received here. First question would be, so I believe similar to all party parliamentary group or Tamils, there is another organization in UK Parliament for Sri Lanka with Lord Neseby's involvement, and do they support Sri Lanka?
Yeah, Anurag, that's true. There is another organization called All Party Parliamentary Group for Sri Lanka. That was established by Lord Nesby because he had some interest a long time ago. He established, he wanted, because many countries has their own parliamentary groups in UK. So Lord Nesby has had some affiliation, some connection with Sri Lankans. So he started this group a long time ago. The problem is he is not the president of that group anymore. Oh. When in 2015, one of the Sri Lankan, one of the person from Sri Lanka ancestry, Mr. Ranil Jayawardena, he when he elected to the parliament in 2015, UK Parliament, Lord Nesby may be given that post to Ranil Jayawardena because he must have think that he must be the most suitable person for the post. Unfortunately, since 2015, the parliamentary groups involved in these type of issues is very, very limited, actually zero. Apart from the voice by the Lord Nesby, the parliamentary group is silence. When we inquired about this kind of scenario, their response is just like they stay neutral for the time being. Maybe because of the different political situation in Sri Lanka from 2015, maybe the strategy may be going to be different in future because of the changing of the government. It's all the government policy. The parliamentary group is thinking that the government policies and the parliamentary group policies must be paired. So that might be the reason. I'm not blaming anyone, but that is the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Jayaraj. Next question we have is, you have mentioned that UK government is still leading actions against Sri Lanka in UNHRC. My understanding is during the last UNHRC session in March, Sri Lanka Foreign Minister informed the Council that they are withdrawing from Resolution 30/1. Do you think that this will end the UNHRC process for Sri Lanka, Sri SL and LTT supporters activism in UNHRC?
I think this is one of the myths that created after the March session. In March session, 43rd session in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, we also attended to that session. And that was not about withdrawing the resolution. It is about withdrawing our participation, our coordination, and our cooperation from the resolution. That means we taken away our co-sponsorship, and the minister attended to that session, the foreign minister from Sri Lanka. He stated that Sri Lankan government is intent to withdraw from the co-sponsorship of the resolution. Withdrawing from the co-sponsorship of the resolution itself does not mean that we are withdrawing from the resolution. Still, we are binded by the resolution according to the principles and the regulations governed by the Human Rights Council. We still binded with the resolution. We are answerable as without the co-sponsorship, nothing is going to change. That resolution is going to taken up again next session, not next session, the session after. During the March session, because the 2 years period given to us by the last resolution is over, is going to end on the in March. So that resolution is going to be taken up, and the most interesting aspect about this one is that we have to be vigilant on what is that the core group. The core group is the group that brought the resolution against us the last time, but 2 years ago, not the 30/1, the subsequent one. That when the US left the Human Rights Council, now it is the UK is leading. So the core group is Canada, Germany, North Macedonia, and Montenegro. The UK is leading as well. So what we still don't know what they are going to do. Are they going to bring a new resolution, or are they going to punish us for withdrawing the resolution of co-sponsorship? Are they going to propose sanctions against us, or whatever? Still, we don't know.
Thank you. Thank you, Jayaraj. So now we have concluded the presentations. Now we are going over two common questions, or since we are a little bit over time, I'm just going to limit to one question and share the viewpoints of all the panelists of this one question. We are getting questions. Primarily, I received 3 questions on this topic, so I'm just going to put it as a common question. So I'm going to ask this question from Dr. Rajapaksha. I know it's almost 3 a.m. in New Zealand, so thank you for hanging on and being with us from New Zealand at 3 a.m. The question I have is organizing Tamil events and LTT events. Can you explain how this is done in New Zealand or Australian kind of perspective? And we'll ask the same question from Jayaraj as well as Neville. So organizing of Tamil events and LTT events, how is this done in New Zealand? You're muted, doctor. Sorry, you're muted.
I think in New
Again, it's muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear now. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I think in New Zealand, they are pretty much on the back foot because we have been on the front foot. They still try various tricks, but we try more tricks. Now, recently I said we regularly canvass political parties on both sides. We are in close contact with them, especially at times like this when the elections are around, we are in the forefront. And what I have found is that if you are in the front foot, then they retract. But I can see that people, that Canada and UK certainly has got a bigger challenge. But really, it reinforces to me the need for the Sri Lankan government to be actively involved with citizen groups, both in the UK and Canada, to proactively counter this, and it should be proactively. And one way to go proactively is to go after these Tamil diaspora, especially for the crimes that they committed in funding terror for 3 decades. We should not forget that. It's been completely ignored. We are the ones who should call for it. They will try to ignore it, but we have to keep calling for it. If you call once, you get nowhere. If you call twice, you get nowhere. You have to keep calling for more and on and on. So that's why I say we should be prepared for the long haul, and Sri Lankan government has to realize that. And if they don't, that all their good work can be nullified by the crafty maneuvering moves of these tiger diaspora in general as a group.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rajapaksa. Now I'm going to ask the same question to Dr. Hevage. Dr. Hevage, could you explain the differences of Tamil events and LTTE events that is being done in Canada?
But actually, there is a few events. But so as I mentioned on my presentation, and May 18th, so one of the death of the Tamil terrorist leader. So then July 5th, Black Tiger events are not happening in Canada some reason. But however, November 27th, birthday of the terrorist leader, they are celebrating and commemorating and promoting the separatist agenda as a Tamil event and Tamil who suffered event. Then other point is that the Tamil cultural event has a very highly rich cultural heritage. They have Tamil, Pongu Tamil, and some other Navasivaratri, and those events also organized by the LTTE propagandists. So what they do, and they organize the Tamil cultural events also, they were connected together to selling the, bring the public to the, the show, and they are selling the albums and Tamil diaspora, Tamil tiger flags. So those things are happening. So we have to be very careful what the situation. Average politician doesn't know what the Tamil event and Tamil LTTE terrorist event, because the school board also doesn't know. Because when I have that our legal proceeding against the school board, and the school board investigators clearly say that they don't know about this thing. So now only thing is that we have to educate the public and difference between Tamil LTTE terrorist propaganda and the Tamil event. So we have to separate. Important thing is that all the Tamils are not terrorists. There's a period. They are beautiful people, and they are very culturally vibrant and well-educated community. So we have to be understand. Second thing is that, but all the LTT terrorists are Tamil. So therefore, we have to be separate them very carefully to fight against this LTT propaganda.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Hevage. Same question going out to Mr. Palihawadana. Could you explain these differences in the context of UK?
As Dr. Hevage pointed out, it is similar. It's a similar way that happenings in UK. They are all interconnected. There are two different parties, the supporters of the LTTE and within Tamils. There are supporters of LTTE, there are non-supporters of the LTTE. But the events most of the 99% of the events organized by the supporters of the LTTE. They use their symbols, they use their flag, they use the it's like they are half of the country, the symbol all over the places. Similar names, similar events, Pongu Tamil, etc., etc. But our LTT supporting diaspora, the Tamil diaspora, is so silent. They are not organizing any events, but they don't support these events. I know very well, but the Tamil supporters events are very well organized. And the main important thing is, if you have a protest or if you have a event like this, you have to get the permission from the UK government, or mainly from the police. Police give the permission. Sometimes they are holding protests, irrespective of any permissions taken from the police. But still, the British government, British police, let them to have it in the name of the democracy. You know, the concept we have to very well understand in Sri Lanka, in UK, because in UK, the people are very law-abiding citizens, as well as they respect the human rights. This is the country in 2020, in the year 2015, no, not 2015, 1215, the Magna Carta is signed, the first ever declaration of human rights. Since then, they follow the principles of the human rights, and that concept been very well followed by the LTT supporters, and they adjusted that principle, that human rights principles, into their system when organizing these events. That is why all the British MPs and become sympathizers of the LTT cause, and they are very well attending all these events. So that is the concept. We understand why they organize and what is the concept behind this.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Mr. Palihawadana. Okay, so we have concluded the 3 presentations from our panelists. There are some other questions that has come, so unfortunately we cannot answer them for the lack of time. So I'm going to take this opportunity to invite our panelists to give their closing remarks. You have 2 minutes each. Sorry, I'm just going to ask the same question from we asked. Okay, sorry about that. I had a small missteps here. Okay, so I'm going to invite our 3 panelists to give their closing remarks, and we have 2 minutes each. Thank you. Now, starting with Dr. Rajapaksa.
I think what we have seen is a clear demonstration that Tamil genocide has no basis, has no factual basis. It's a construct of the Tiger diaspora. And it is very important that authorities worldwide, particularly UK and Canada, are made aware of this by regular canvassing to keep them informed of both the fallacy of this claim and also draw attention to the fact that by continuing to make allegations, they are violating my human right. I have a human right not to be accused of a crime that I have not committed. And it's been clearly shown that I have not, that we Sri Lankans have not committed genocide. So we should convince these politicians from these countries that in the name of freedom of speech, permitting them to continue to perpetuate this allegation is a violation of the human rights of 20 million Sri Lankans world over. And to do this, there's a lot of effort required, and the Sri Lankan government has to come into this. Otherwise, it's going to backfire on them. And the other arm that I would recommend is to go at these diaspora people who are still around. You mentioned Rudran Kumaran, you mentioned Palihawadana, they are still around. These are the people who funded 33 decades of terror in Sri Lanka. There's plenty of evidence of that. And we should be now calling for investigation into these and have them brought to book depending on the findings. And we have to, in the UK, I think Lord Naseby still is the best bet. And now in New Zealand, we have a parliamentary group, Sri Lanka New Zealand parliamentary group, We are actively involved in that. UK is much more complex. They have got a head start, but they really have to do this. And if you don't do this, you will always be on the back foot.
Thank you, Dr. Rajapaksa. Can we invite Dr. Hevage?
Actually, my final remarks is that same as Dr. Chula, and there is no legal basis for the Tamil genocide. Therefore, there is no legal basis for the Bill 104. Bill 104 has no any prospectus to become a law in Ontario. So this is now is happening. So this is clear, and so that's what the Tamil diaspora is more concerned and organizing the sympathy card playing. Sympathy is not the law. Law is the one is clearly we have to establish for the legal principles. Then important aspects of this, we have to counter the Bill 104, and we should not give them a blank check, multi-million-dollar blank check to sign and to become a legal authority and false claim. And they will continually doing the fundraising and against for the separatist agenda against Sri Lanka. But separatist agenda is affecting not only for Sri Lanka, and mainly it's going to affect for the Tamil civilians. That is my main concern. That is our research center concern. That is our academic center is a concern. So we have to stop this, all the things happening in Canada, and we have to stop this, all the allegation is rounding through this genocide allegation. Then second thing is that we have to continually lobby at the academic institution, that the school boards, and don't take their LTTE campaign into their school system. Then so what they started issuing the Twitter message, assuming that it is true, but they have realized that it's a completely bogus, portrayed and orchestrated stage show by the LTTE Tamil terrorist propaganda. So therefore, that genocide activities, the promotional activities in the school board, they have no rights whatsoever to talk about the education system. Because as I show my presentation, and they recruited over 7,000 child soldiers. So they had to stop that one. So by promoting and supporting for education bill in the school boards. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hevage. And finally, we go to Mr. Palihawadana. What your closing remarks?
Thank you, Edward. Anura, whatever happens in Canada is going to happen in UK very soon. If it is going to be, if we allow to these things happens in Canada, it is happening in UK as well. So it is going to be a precedent. It's going to be a legal precedent for all the other countries all over the world. That is why we joined this one from UK. It is very important to collectively we raised our voices against these kind of untruthful, unbiased, very biased allegations against Sri Lanka. So to eradicate all these, to overcome all these problems creating by the LTTE supporters in worldwide, there is a big role to play by the Sri Lankan government, as Mr. Rajapaksa earlier mentioned about this. There is a big role. There are lots of LTTE cadres as well as the people who finance the LTTE still at large. There's no prosecution started in Sri Lanka. So as a precedent for all these dealings, it is better the Sri Lankan government should start prosecuting those are responsible. So that will give a clear message to the world, especially the UK and Canada and Australia, that these are the individuals financing the terrorism. These are the people committed atrocities against the humanity. These are the people should be prevented into organizing activities in support of LTTE ideology. So there is a big role, as well as the government of Sri Lanka, as well as the missions of the government as to play. So I'm not going to elaborate all this information, but it is the collective effort as Sri Lankans. We should oppose these presidents coming over to haunt us. So it is the peace. Now we are thinking about the 11 years has been passed after the war in 2009. That was ended. So we don't want any more dealings about any more talking about the genocide, war crimes, or anything like that. Nothing could have been achieved last year, 11 years by the LTTE supporters. Now the Tamil people in North and East given a verdict during the last election that they don't want anything of that. They just want the peace and livelihood to establish their lives. So that is the most important part for the common Tamil people. So we are not against the Tamil people. That is, we understand that is the will of the Tamil people. These organizations support the LTTE and carrying out their slogans and their symbols and trying to make money out of this business should stop in the name of the suffering Tamil people in North and East. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palihawadana. So that concludes our webinar. I have a list of thank yous to provide. First of all, we'd like to thank all the presenters who have given us vital information on the topic of Tamil terrorist LTTE propaganda and their infiltration into political and education systems. Thanks to the Ontario Centre for Policy and Research for hosting and organizing this event. Thanks to Sri Lankan Canadian Action Coalition for providing a live Facebook feed of this event. Thanks to all the participants who joined us in various social media platforms and provided many questions to be asked by our panelists, and apologies are requested if we could not ask your question in a timely manner. However, we will, the Policy Center, we will provide answers by email for the questions that were not presented on screen. And once again, thank you all. We'll come back with you for another session from Policy Research Ontario on another topic on another day. Once again, thank you and have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.